Global Engineering Leadership and Entrepreneurship, and it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker this morning for the Fall 2021 Hyatt Distinguished Talk. So our speaker is Mr. Blake Peck, who is a professional engineer and certified construction manager, the founding principal of MBP, a construction management and consulting firm that provides a full range of program and construction management services, including the following: constructibility review, PPM scheduling, cost estimating, program and project management, and dispute resolution services. MBP has been recognized by Engineering News Record as a national top 100 construction management firm and a top 50 program management firm. Mr. Peck has more than 40 years of varied construction experience, and this is experience with buildings, heavy construction. So buildings, the whole range: hotels, plants, offices, education, healthcare, housing, and government facilities. And when we talk about heavy construction, we're talking about power, highways, bridges, subways, marine work, and utilities, a wide range. He's a nationally recognized expert in construction and program management. His current role as CEO is responsible for executing the firm's in-house quality management program and providing strategic vision for the firm. His experience includes 7 years of design and construction management for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, as well as more than 30 years as a construction management consultant for numerous large construction programs. Blake has managed diverse claims analysis assignments for owners and contractors and has provided extensive cost estimating services to government and private agencies in support of their capital programs. He has also performed CPM scheduling services on more than $16 billion in projects to include both instruction to and expert testimony on behalf of municipal, state, and federal agencies. Blake is an active member of the Construction Management Association of America. He served as the national chair from 2001 to 2002 and served as on the Construction Manager Certification Institute Board of Governors from 2004 to 2006. He was inducted into CMAA's College of Fellows in 2005 and served as Chancellor from 2015 to 2017. Blake was elected to the National Academy of Construction in 2016. And I also must say that Blake's firm has been very supportive of the Hyatt program from its inception. So we want to thank him for that. With that, I welcome him and turn it over to him. Please give him a warm applause.
You can tell you're getting old when your bio starts exceeding the amount of time that your screensaver. So, sorry about that. Give me a minute. Thanks, Anjo. You know, when Phil Breedlove and a number of us were advocating for the leadership program here at the school, we saw it as being a real differentiator for the school. And we couldn't be more pleased over the last decade how this program has taken off and the reception it's gotten among the student body. Now, when I was asked a couple of years ago to get in the queue to speak to you all, it was primarily because I was the founder. Oh, there we go. Had to get Emily off her seat. It was primarily because I was founder of a top 50 firm that we founded. We're in our 32nd year. We built it into one of the nation's top CMPM services firm. And while we're fairly East Coast centric, we do have clients that take us across the globe. In fact, we have people in Guam, Japan, Australia, We work with the DODs, the State Department has taken us all over the place. So, however, as we got closer and due to some of the events of the last year, it was suggested that I might want to also include some of my family and my family's story at Peck. Not something that I like doing or bragging about and whatnot, but I'll do that. I agreed to do that because I think you all need to understand you've got a lot to be proud of in terms of your school and its legacy in terms of addressing some of the diversity and inclusion issues as long as 75 years ago. So do me a favor, close your eyes and think of, try to envision an engineer. What do you see when you see an engineer? Well, if you're from my generation, and probably some of you here, these three guys pretty much fit the bill, right? Well, this is coming from your right, the M, the B, and the P in our first year of being in business. You know, your classic stereotype engineer, right? Isn't that what? Well, my grandmother used to say, don't always judge a book by its cover because you might miss a good story. Frank McDonough, the short guy, he's actually standing on a box. I'm just kidding. And Charlie McBoyer were the first two in their families to go to school, much less get an engineering. Frank used it as a way to escape the shipyards of Liverpool, England. Charlie saw it as his ticket out of the coal mines of West Virginia. And along the way, they found each other and finally found me. My story is a little different because when I close my eyes and I see an engineer, look, how do you go back? I see this woman, my mother. And she was a woman of first. First woman to hold an engineering degree, a bachelor in chemical engineering from Vanderbilt University. First woman to have a master's or a PhD in engineering from the University of Florida. Later on, became the first woman president in higher education in the University of Florida University system. But before all that, she took a job blowing up stuff for the Marines. That led to getting a job, getting multiple jobs in the fledgling space program, where she worked on developing rocket propulsion fuels. So it was always a little intimidating. I remember one time I was struggling with learning how to tie my shoes. And my mom just looks at me and says, Blake, it's not rocket science. She'd know. But to be fair to us, she was always mom. And whether it was helping with homework, making us eat weird vegetables, giving bad haircuts, is probably the only thing she wasn't good at. I mean, I just, good taste precluded me from letting you see the after. But she was a force to be reckoned with. Anyways, she came to Hyatt naturally. Her mom, her dad was an electrical and mechanical engineer. Her mom was an architect. Her dad was orphaned at 4 years old in Galveston, Texas. He was raised in a Masonic orphanage for girls, just so he could stay with his older sister. Back in those days, you weren't even guaranteed to go into high school. He had to win a scholarship just to go to high school. From there, he won another scholarship, went to Purdue, and the rest is history. He went on to great things. My grandmother was the first generation American born from Swedish immigrants. She went to Cal Berkeley, studied, got multiple degrees in architecture. Because she was a woman, she couldn't find a job as an architect, which turned out to be a good thing because she went back, got a nursing degree, went to World War I, where she met my grandfather convalescing from injury. So I like to think if San Francisco hadn't been so damn chauvinistic, I would never exist. Anyways, you can kind of see where this led to during my grandfather's tenure as president. Some of the things that happened in terms of allowing gaining admission for women. You know, he was highly motivated by his wife and his daughter, but I think it really pissed him off because my mother was a valedictorian, and even in the days before Hope scholarships, would have gotten a free ride to the, to be an engineer at Peck had she been allowed. But before he died, he pushed that through. He also started the first steps to integration, and famously was part of standing up to the governor and the Board of Regents, playing in the Sugar Bowl against Pitt and Bobby Greer. And if you all haven't read about that story or seen it, it's just something that will, it's hard to believe that in 75 years and times that were that, how unpopular that was, what courage that took by not only my grandfather, but students and everything. So we have a lot to be proud of. And I think to this day is one of the reasons why Georgia Tech has always been one of the main producers of women and minority engineers in the country, which is highly unusual for a traditional legacy type school. But as Reggie DeRoches once told me, you do these things by being purposeful. And you make it part of your culture, make it happen. And so, which brings me to the gist of my talk today. Go back. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about values-based leadership and how important this is to building the right culture, and what it meant and what it meant for my company. Now, I know values and culture are such a buzzword. I mean, you hear it from every company and every organization that you're involved with. But a lot of it, comes not just from buzzwords or foosball tables or what have you, anything you can think of building culture. It comes from getting the right people, getting them online, having a vision, and having authenticity in your action. You've got to live it. You can't just say it. You got to live it. So my company's story began with Charlie and I working in another company. And we were in a company where we weren't aligned. We didn't have a shared vision. And as a result, eventually it became evident that somebody had to leave And after we failed to buy the others out, we decided, well, I guess it's us. That's got to leave. Now, you've heard the stories of people being in bars or whatnot, and making, business plans and whatnot on a napkin, and cocktail napkin and whatnot. Well, I'm here to tell you that it actually happened in this case. We met after work at a bar in Springfield, Virginia called Kilroy's. I know, you can't make this stuff up. And to this day, enshrined in our company archives is our original business plan. Now, there's still some disagreement on whether that was a 3 or a 4 originally, but here you see, this is it. This is what we went to the bank with. Well, we decided on the second try we better come up with something a little more. But this was the original thing. We thought, hey, wouldn't it be great if you could get up to 4 or 5 people? Well, we already had 3. And we had a cool logo. Hey, is that not 80s or what? And it'd be just great if we could do 3, 4, 50 or so. And we did all this, and we leaped out in December of '89, right as the economy went into a recession. Our wives were looking at us like we had lost our effing. We left these good-looking, good-paying jobs. We could have gotten, okay, you don't want to be there. You could have hired on with XYZ company, who was actually in business, as opposed to MVP, which didn't exist. And only because somehow we managed to convince them and whatnot. Oh, and my wife was pregnant with our 3rd child at the time, so I am a total genius planning things out. Well, we managed to somehow, by hook or crook, and working hard. And one of the great things about going in a recession at the time was most people's marketing plan was answering the phone. And they just called you. We knew we had to work hard, so we worked hard. And we did $1 million in the first year. And we've made money ever since. But a lot of it was, the overriding theme was we wanted to do things the right way, and we wanted to build a company, build a different company, one that we would want to work for, even if we don't own it. That was the vision. That was a singular vision. And along the way, we got a lot of people. In fact, we have people that were hired in the first year that are still with the company. We have amazing, compared to the industry, construction industry, which tends to be a little volatile in it. We have amazing retention. We have amazing client retention. We've never done worse than 85% repeat business. But a lot of it, I think, is, and about a few years in, we decided, okay, it was growing, and it was getting a little out of control. Once you're over 20 people, if you got 3, it's already, you've already lost control. You just got to recognize it. So we decided we had to get on, be real, a lot of people do strategic planning. We wanted to make it strategic action. And one of the things we first came up with was, how do we make this company, you saw we have over, those are just our main office, so it's not even counting all the people that are in projects. How do you make sure that Roy in Atlanta is doing what George in New York is doing, what Chris and DC was mayor of in Columbia, Gator? No, you can't make this up. We actually have a guy named Gator. And they're all doing the same thing. That's what it comes down to, the values, right? The one thing we didn't want to be, anybody ever eaten out of Five Guys here? Yeah, I can see, yeah, you guys are doing well. I can't do that. Enjoy it while you can. Don't listen to that health food stuff. right? Well, I actually, the five guys started in Falls Church, Virginia. And for the longest time, they grew until they only had 5 restaurants because there were only 5 guys. That was how they could control. Well, then they franchised out and stuff. Well, I can guarantee you, because I've had 5 guys in LA, and the 5 guys in Los Angeles doesn't taste anything like the 5 guys that I grew up with. So we didn't want to be those guys. So we came up with the 3-guy model. So we started up and we defined 6 values that defined our company. Well, we just thought defined MVP. And if we lived those 6 values, that we would be always MVP, even when we got to 1,000, 2,000 people. If we were consistently there, the culture would be the same. So that's the concept. So, and you'll see, we have integrity, quality, we got a lot of the usual ones you think. But what I'm going to give you is a brief version of what I have for 20 some odd years, 25 years, I would give all our new team members. And the one reason I did it was, actually there were 2 reasons. One, I wanted them to know it was important because I was given it, so it obviously had to be important. 2, if they ever got a skew of these values, and we had to have a values talk, not only would they know it was serious, but 2, I knew that they had heard it and what those values meant. And that was part of building in the culture. Everybody has values, but how many? You go to most companies, are they carrying those values in their wallet? Are they using that? Are they talking that? You have to make it real. So I begin each talk with this value, I call the teamwork value. Now I had 6 values I could do. Why would I start with this one? Anybody got a guess? Yeah, don't worry. Nobody at MVP ever gets it either. Because this is the one that makes the others possible. This is the one that makes everyone go. How many times have you been in a team and everybody's doing great? Everybody's got integrity. Except Emily over there. Well, what do they remember about CE? Well, not Emily, the lion, what? And that's what it is. If you are not all aligned, if you are not all moving in the same direction, it's not possible. You can aspire to have all the quality you want. You can aspire to be as innovative as you want, but you as an organization are not going to be perceived that way if you do not live this back. So that's why I begin with this. Now, the other part of it and what is so important, we have never called our employees from day one. They are team members. Frank McDonough used to have a great expression. He said MVP means many beautiful performances. The organization only survives and only is efficient if everybody's doing their job. If everybody's filling out their timesheet. If everybody's doing their role. Who do you think has the most client contact in an organization? Anybody? Don't worry, they get it wrong too. Some people tell, it's a project manager, because they're always talking about it. Well, that's one client. Oh, that's the instructor. Yeah. Maybe 1, maybe 2 clients. But nah, that's like only the worst client. It's the person answering the phone. And I guarantee you, if that person's having a bad day, we're having a bad day. MVP. What the F do you want? Oh, you got a 7-figure contract you want help on? Let me put you on hold here. Oh, hey, I got to go to lunch, man. I mean, you can see how it happens. I mean, we could have just lost a 7-figure job. Then I finish with telling them, Joyce has done our payroll for the last 20 years. And I said, if Joyce is having a bad day, we're all having a bad day. So it requires everybody doing their job. I can be the most brilliant engineer, but if Christina just thinks that, we don't need that attachment, it looks better upside down. You know, what's somebody going to think about my attention? So it's always, and this is one, and to build this thing, you don't get this by treating people different. We have never not included the support team, the HR, the admin, the accounting in our leadership group. Never. We've had somebody who started on the front desk answering those phones and ended up as our senior VP in charge of corporate services. So you got to show, you got to live it. If you say you're a team, you got to show it's a team. How do you bonus? One of the things that drove me nuts. We got a job one time from a big company who said, yeah, I've got a New York office that can do that, but if I, and they were out of Baltimore. They said, but if I give it to you and you do it and I stub it, I still get credit. They were incentivizing bad behavior, behavior that was costing their company. So we are never doing that. Whether it's, we don't vote, if the total team doesn't make money, then nobody gets a bonus. We're all in it together. So I have people falling all over themselves to make sure New York or Atlanta or Charlotte, wherever, is profitable. Because if we're all profitable, we're all getting paid. Next is quality. I think this is, if you're a consulting firm, if you're a professional services firm, this is why you exist, or should be. I mean, the client, they can do a half-assed job all their own. They don't need you to do that. Used to just tear me up when I hear somebody that, they expect more from us than they do from their own people. I said, no kidding, Sherlock. A little more bluntly. They're paying a premium, and they're going outside their organization to get the best. So that's what we're delivering. And if we think there's 3 legs of the stool: profitability, growth. If I don't allow people to grow, it's not going to happen. And quality. Those are the 3 legs that make up the stool. If we get long or short on one of them, but if we're going to get long on anything, it's going to be quality. That's why we exist. And as I told you before, we get most of our work from repeat business. Most of our work is qualification based. So this is like the obvious one, right? Or it should be. But what's funny to me is a lot of times construction has this reputation based on 1 or 2 idiots. I've always found it takes a lot more effort and worry to cheat than to just go out there and do a good job. And it's amazing how many people continue to run that lesson. But I was blessed the way I was raised, where I went to school, to always have this kind of ingrained in me. And then even more blessed to have 2 partners where this was non-negotiable. We didn't want any job that we had to lie, cheat, bribe, whatever to get. We okay, client, you just self-identified yourself as somebody we don't want to work for. Thank you. You won't waste any more marketing on you. But I also think you owe it to the team. I promised to the team, I would say, you will never see me on the 6 o'clock news doing the perp walk with the trench coat. Just not going to happen. And we've had people that have been 10, 15, even 20 years with us that got us to this value, and it's breathtaking how quickly they're out. I think our record is it took 2 hours on one person. I don't know why we wanted short. Because I have to get that kind of stink away from my organization. It's just, I remember Donovan Reagan's labor secretary, and he wasn't even guilty, but he put himself in a bad perception. And it took him a while, so he got indicted. And then finally went to trial, and he was found innocent, as he should have been. And they were giving him the, where are you going to go? Disney World kind of moment. And he said, can anybody tell me where I go to get my reputation? He knew right then that his career in public life was over. And everything he had done and built in 30 years career had gone down in the drain because he put himself in the wrong position, in the wrong place, in the wrong time. Sometimes, as we've seen, perception can be just as bad as reality. So the way you fight that is never giving it a chance and doing what you say. Nobody ever got in trouble at MVP for making a mistake. I mean, if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not doing anything, which is a mistake. Now, if you keep making the same mistake, we're going to have a talk. But it's important that I hear it from you first. That's what I tell you. One of my early jobs with the Department of Transportation in Virginia was a complicated weigh-in-motion scale, big, never been done before. We're out there in a report. Something gets included in a report that was an old issue, but the way it got left in, it made it look like we weren't doing our job, and more importantly, our client wasn't providing right oversight. So when the federal oversight came, they wanted to know what the heck had gone on. It was a very tenuous moment. Well, I spent the day, we went to our regular progress meeting, went in, sat with, we did all that. Then I said, okay, Jerry can have a minute. I had a 20-minute soliloquy of how everything I was going to do to make sure something like this never happened again. And all the procedures we had taken, and I had the circles and arrows and the flow chart. It was great. I even did a CPM. I was ready to do a flow diagram, but Charlie pulled me back. Anyways, I got literally into the second sentence of it. I start out with Jerry, I effed up. I just screwed it up. I should have caught this. I know it was always, I should. And then I got to the night and he stopped me, stuck out his hand, said, you were going to come here with a song and dance how everything wasn't your fault, da, da, da. We were going to go around and around. That you owned it. I trust you to make it right. Did it. He said, heck, I should have caught it. Your report was there for 3 or 4 days. I could have caught it. Anyways, 6 months later, after the job ended, Jerry Kopp wrote us a letter of reference that we still use this day. It was that good. If I had written it and gave it to him to sign, it'd have been half that good. What it taught me was anybody can be a superstar. Anybody can look good when everything's going. But you really make your clients, you gain their trust in how you handle adversity. How you walk, in that moment, Gary and I were in the proverbial foxhole together. And I was there with him fighting and making it right. From that point on, and this is a guy who didn't even want us on the job to begin with. So why do I need a CMAA? Because you have no people. I'll figure it out. And, so I knew when we'd screwed up that it was going to go south. Instead, he became a lifelong friend. We used to call this the hardworking value. And that didn't really, construction's hard work anyways, but it really didn't get to what we were trying to do. I don't want a bunch of hours. I don't want you, if you've got nothing to do here, don't do it here. Go home. Now, I don't want you leaving home and leave, your buddy's got 60 hours of work and you left at 40. Why don't you both work 50 and, go home together? Remember the teamwork, right? But what we really want is to make every hour count. Every hour you're on the job, every time you're working for the client, you're making it count. Whether you're working for in-house or out of, that doesn't sound right, outside clients, we want every hour to count. We do not want to be outworked as a company. If we lose a job, if we don't make it, the project doesn't succeed, we don't want it to be because we weren't willing to do whatever it took to make it a success. And, if you're not willing to commit to that, well, love you to death, just not here. We used to call this forward looking, but that sounded kind of 90s. So we've now gone innovative. But we are really focused on being thought leaders. And our association is that most companies think of us as a much bigger company than we actually are. We've always leveraged our talent and stuff by teaming, being in joint ventures, et cetera, with bigger firms. But we are known for bringing the real brain power, thought leaders. And a lot of that is this idea of, not being happy with the way things are. In fact, in our company, if that's the way we've always done it, that's not a reason. That's a call to action. If we've been doing it for that way for too long, then there should be something we should be doing different. And a lot of times, I tell the folks, listen to your client, figure out. Let's try to understand what problem we're trying to solve, rather than just do what the client. Because a lot of times the client doesn't know. They'll ask you for something, and if you just do it, it may or may not solve the problem. May have an unintended consequence. Better to find out what problem we're trying to solve. One of the great things about the construction industry, when Charlie and I started in the mid to late 70s, you could pretty much map out your career. We knew what we were going to be doing at 30, and probably 35, 40. It was just, the solution for everything in construction was, well, pretty much what we've been doing since the pyramid. Throw more people at it. Well, about 10 or so years ago, we figured out that is no longer sustainable. When I started, it was about an even labor versus material and equipment. Before my father's generation, mother's generation, it was less than that. The labor was less than that. Now your labor is like 2 to 1 easily, and sometimes more. Sometimes 3 to 1 of your costs. Plus, we don't have the people. Right now, I was actually talking with Dr. Webster beforehand. He said, "Well, how big's your company?" Well, we're in the low 300s, but we should be 350, 360. That's how many jobs we have on. But we don't have the people to go to. And part of that is, to me, we got to figure out how we can do with what we've been doing with 12, whether it's design, whether it's construction, whether it's project management, and do it with 3 or 4. And then pay them like 6 currently. Then we've solved, hey, you guys, what do you want to do? Would you rather be stuck inside writing code or looking at a computer screen? Or would you like to be out building things that matter? That's what we do. Everything we do, we build monuments. Everything we do is impactful, makes a difference. So I don't think the construction. In fact, what we're finding with your all's generation is we're not having as much problem recruiting the young folks. You just need schools to be producing more. So, to give you an example, I think in the last 20 years, every 3 to 5 years, the speed of change is going. So we're at unbelievable technologies. Everybody, you may have a stereotype in your mind of the construction industry. I've got guys. Who here is a gamer? Come on, I know you play that game. Come on. You could be an equipment operator, or you could be a drone pilot. I've got a whole 6, 7 folks that do nothing but fly drones around. And they get paid for it. How cool is that? We used to call it remote controlled airplane, but it's the same. These things are even better. We're taking pictures and stuff, and we're doing bridge inspections, site overviews, facility analytics and stuff. And we used to use 4 or 5 people, and I'm doing it with 1 or 2. That's it. So, again, to give you some reference on how, in the mid-'80s, I was the guy who got VDOT its first fax. You guys even know what a fax is? Have you seen a fax machine? You've seen an e-fax, I know, but that's just another way of saying PDF. Well, I'm sitting there working on a bridge, going over the James River, right out, and we're literally basically tearing the substructure and replacing it. I'm trying not to, the busiest bridge in all of Virginia, and not drop it into the river. And I've got to be able to communicate with the engineer up in Fairfax, up in Northern Virginia, from Richmond. And we've got no way to do that. So I get a fax machine, I draw what I see, I put it in the fax machine, I get an answer back, plus we've got this thermal burning paper. How cool is that, right? Plus I have a PC with all green dot Guys seen Pac-Man? This was worse. And then we had to cover it with a dust control and stuff like that because they were so sensitive in that time. I mean, you sneezed on it, it'd die. So how would I have done that today? How would I have done that mission today? Right? I got way more computing power right here than I had in my whole trailer. So that's just things, and that's not that long ago. That's how far we've come, and it's accelerating. We're going to be doing. I mean, right now they've got the first prototypes, and I think all the heavy equipment's going to end up being basically somebody playing Game Boy with Tonka toys. The one operator sitting with his Game Boy controls, operating 5-6 pieces of heavy equipment, being a lot more productive, and probably being paid 6 figures. Finally, why would we care about the community? Well, because the community, everything we do, I've told you this, it impacts the community. Now we've got projects going straight through the, our road jobs, the community goes right through it. This also is part of the idea that, keeping that family feel, keeping that, team together. We also believe in your team members' health. You spend most of your waking hours are with the people you work with, so you need to get along with them. The other part of this is the home team, the people that are supporting the engineer, construction manager, accountant that we have at home. They need to be invested. Because if they're not happy with MVP, I guarantee you that the actual team member is going to be happy. So we've always included them in our annual meetings and brought them, and so that they're invested. I've actually, on 2 occasions, I can tell you that the team member was coming to us and asking about leaving, and he went home and she said, well, you can leave, but I'm not. But I don't want to lose all my friends. So it's important to get that and care about each other and show it. And, people won't care. It's that saying. People won't care until they know how. So all these values are great unless you live them. I'm going to have to correct Dr. Kennedy. At the beginning of the year, I stepped down from CEO. Charlie and I completed our ownership transition. So we have completed the dream that even if we don't own it, we still work for this company. But to get there, we had to make the next generation capable of leading and stuff. At one point, we realized we kept everything to ourselves. So here's some, we took 2 different trips of leaders up to West Point. We did situational classroom. So one of the best things they found is a lot of what was being espoused up there was, stuff that we were doing. Of course, I would say, well, where do you think I got it from? Anyways, we're proud to say that we've had a successful ownership transition. We've got, and our leadership picture looks a whole lot different. The chair of our board is a woman who started at 19 as an intern for us. Our service leader of our project controls group is a Black African American woman who immigrated from Libya through construction. And we've got, we've got Asians, women, so it happened organically. It happened just giving people the opportunity and to me, we made MVP the big self-help program. Those that took the reins and did it, it just happened. And again, as Reggie said, they're being purposeful. So that's a picture of the team at one of our functions. As you can see, there's both spouses and team members active in it. And they seem to be having a fun, or either that or they're real mad at the drum. And with that, if we have time for any questions, I know around.
raise your hand and I'll come around to you guys.
Nobody wants.
Good presentation.
Can you speak up a little bit?
You talked about having an organization of team members, certain values. I'm just wondering if you could talk about building that. How much of that do you think is the values that people have before you bring them into the company? And how much of that do you think is the work that you guys do as far as building them once they're in the company? I'm wondering how much time and energy do you devote to each side of that equation?
Okay, I think if I understand the question is, I think one of the things we did in terms of our choosing our values was we wanted to match what would be successful in our industry and in our our practice field. I think that as civils and whatnot, we're generally you're attracted to this profession because you want to do things that matter and that you want to make things that change lives. It's part of it. You want to make people's lives better. And so, it wouldn't do me any good to sit there and have a value that, okay, we want to make nothing but a lot of money. There's a reality to that, but the profitability that we have is about, being able to use that to fund, the things that we want to do to keep us being impactful. Did I answer the question?
Yeah. I was just wondering, you have like a methodology for identifying these values that you're looking to bring into the team.
I've got this thing going, so I can't really hear.
For talent identification, how do you identify the
Yeah.
talent and the
Like
values?
I can put on my resume, all my CAD skills and whatever else I've done, but it's hard to put on a resume that, I really value integrity. So how do you?
Well, and the truth is that, who's going to put, well, I've got situational ethics. I mean, nobody's going to put that. Everybody, but I think you can, in the top line where you say, what are you looking for? I'm looking for a values-based, something along that, or a company that is ethics driven, something like that. Would be an indicator to us. And we also look at, hey, what else are you doing on your spare time? Believe it or not, for us, getting a good engineer is the easy part. I'm more interested in what you do in your spare time, who you hang out with, what do you, are you doing church stuff? Are you doing, it doesn't matter as long as, you're doing something that shows you're a team player. Being in sports, being in team sports is a big deal. It's whatever your passion. I would be honest about whatever it is that drives you, because that's going to make it a lot easier for somebody to get you not only on the right bus, but in the right seat.
So we have a question from the chat. Can you comment on the latest idea from a young employee that your company implemented?
Well, we have we do like a Shark Tank thing once or twice a year, depending on how often, but we just did one. And without getting too technical, because I am the definition of if user-friendly on tech, if I can use it, user-friendly. But we have some situations of some reporting. We had some GPS-driven technology that we've also got some data-driven contract administration. We've developed multiple softwares in the last 5 years that have all been brought up from team members, particularly our younger team members, that are just finding solutions to solve client problems. So there's, kind of a general what they bring. A lot of times they'll raise their hand and just say, "Hey, this isn't working for me." And we've got them and said, "Well, we're doing this because we got to do federal blah 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 blah, and that's why we're doing it." Now they're still filling out that stupid form, but at least they know. The worst I think you can do is hide information and treat people like mush. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have you showed us your business plan on the napkin, and we know you had great success since then. But we also know that there are periods where things are not going so well. So could you talk about leadership or leading during those times of struggle and challenge?
Yeah, we've made money every year but one. And that was, we actually, when the market went down in 2008, we had kind of seen that coming and we had pivoted. We had planned 2 years earlier. So we actually grew through the first 3 years of that. Then when they drove up against the federal ceiling and whatnot, we had clients acting like they'd never acted before. We had, like here in Atlanta, we had millions of dollars of task orders, active task orders canceled that had never happened before. So there's a client. So that required some real lessons learned and we had to reduce our company almost a third. That was the only year we did just to survive. Now, I will guarantee you that the lesson that my next generation leaders learned was that there were probably about half those cuts should have been made earlier. But we were doing so well and they were so afraid of losing a body. Well, just having a body and they're not a good fit is not the right thing. Fast forward to this last go around, and we have a dip. That team, having learned those lessons, having gone up to West Point and done all that, they got ahead of it. They had situational, they went from, I used to call them my Costanzas. You all know that, I know that's a dated route, but the teachers know what I mean. Whatever you're thinking, do the opposite, and you'll probably be right. An episode where George does that, and he does the opposite, and he ends up with an elite model, has a girlfriend, and his dream job is the New York Yankees front office. And all by saying the wrong, things like, I live at home with mom. I think, it goes down from there. Well, it was almost as bad. And then I realized, I looked in the mirror, I said, they're Costanzas because you trained them to be Costanzas. And the difference in the performance in the last 2 years was phenomenal. They took ownership. They got ahead of things. Nothing was a surprise. And we actually had one of our best years last year. Shocking. And it was all by getting with clients, figuring out problems, and we actually, although we lost a number of jobs because of COVID, they had other clients ended up having other things. Who knew we were going to build temporary hospitals all over the East?
So we are going to do the good presentation now because the class is coming in.
Yes,
then
ma'am.
We'll take the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you.
Outside because we're going to have lunch. Please give